fertilizing. We get a lot of questions about just what to do with fertilizing. And why we fertilize our plants, like what Tatiana was saying, is that, as the plant is growing, it's sucking up the nutrients from the soil. So we kind of want to give them like their daily vitamin basically, and put fertilizer in the soil so that they can have that nutrients. So most fertilizer, it's made up of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen promotes growth, phosphorus is for the roots and flowers, and potassium is for resistance and hardiness. And you can actually make your own natural fertilizers of each of these. I've done it before. Nitrogen, you can do coffee grounds in water, phosphorus, eggshells, and potassium, like a banana in water, and water your plants with that. If you have more questions on that, you can put it in the chat. And you're going to want to fertilize during the spring, summer, and fall months. So when the days start to get longer and your plant is coming out of that dormant period, you'll want to start fertilizing. So in the spring, we suggest fertilizing on a monthly basis. And then once you're in the hotter summer months, you can start fertilizing on a bi-weekly basis. And the fertilizer that I like to use is a liquid fertilizer. And I'll shout out, like, the fertilizer that we have on Cellular Plants is the 20-20-20 fertilizer, which is the one that I usually use. Tatiana, you said you use a liquid one, right, as well?
Yeah, I love liquid. It's less messy, it's less complicated, especially if you're not really too familiar on what needs to be good enough for your plants. Stick to liquid and you're good to go.
Yeah, so that's one I'll use. So I'll just put it in my pot or my watering can, the amount, like about half the amount that it suggests, and then I'll water my plants with the liquid fertilizer in the water. Some tips for fertilizing: look up the fertilizing needs for your specific plant, just to make sure that you're not over fertilizing them. Dilute the fertilizer more than the directions say. I've had some sad experiences where I've over fertilized the plant and it ends up burning them and killing them. So you can over fertilize the plant and kill it. You can never really under fertilize it. So err on the side of caution, and split it maybe in half of what the directions say, and start from there when you're fertilizing your plant. If you have a plant that's super dried out, so you haven't, maybe you forgot to water it, you went on vacation and you come back, water the plant first, and then maybe the next week fertilize it, because you don't want to fertilize a plant that's super thirsty, because it's just going to suck up that fertilizer and it could potentially burn it. Another tip for this is to fertilize a couple weeks after repotting your plant. So you follow Tatiana's repotting instructions, and then the plant, when you repot it, its roots are still pretty bare, like it hasn't really gotten settled in the pot. And so if you fertilize then again, the roots are just a little bit more exposed. So wait a couple of weeks after repotting to actually, go ahead and fertilize your pot, or fertilize your plant. So that's it for fertilizing. If you have more questions, put them in the chat.
And I have one more little tip, actually.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So when you are fertilizing, another good suggestion, if you live in an area where your tap water is kind of harsh, try using some distilled water as well, because you never know if your plant is a really funny one and just cannot tolerate it. It's also good to practice using distilled water. That's like a sure bet that your plant's going to thrive when you're fertilizing too.
Yeah, that's a good point.